Hey guys, how's it going? This is Waj from the MW Technology channel on YouTube, and in this video we'll be doing a direct comparison between the BlackBerry Q10 and the Samsung Galaxy S4. Now straight off the bat, we should all understand that these are really different smartphones, and even though they may not be directly competing against each other, there are going to be some people wondering which phone to get and some of the pros and cons of each phone individually, and perhaps some of you just want to know how the BlackBerry Q10 fares against a large screen smartphone such as the Samsung Galaxy S4. So just one of the first basic things that we're going to look at in comparing these two is the overall physical dimensions of both these devices. Now, this gives you a good idea how they look side by side. So starting with the BlackBerry Q10, it measures about 119.6 millimeters in height, 66.8 millimeters in width, and obviously this is going to be a lot more smaller than the Samsung Galaxy S4, which measures about 69.8 millimeters in width and 136.6 millimeters in height. Now straight off the bat, from a design perspective, both these two phones come from a completely different philosophy and spectrum of design. The BlackBerry Q10 is using that traditional kind of first generation smartphone, which they kind of pioneered with the actual physical keyboard. And almost half of the device is devoted to an awesome physical keyboard that's probably the best that they've ever made. And there's a lot of people who are devout keyboard users who really need a physical keyboard to do all their day-to-day applications and tasks in a really efficient and quick manner, and a touchscreen is really not going to cut it for them. So in that regard, the BlackBerry Q10 offers all the latest kind of features and operating system that you would find in a modern day touchscreen smartphone like the BlackBerry Z10 that they just offered a couple of months ago, but with a physical keyboard. Now, interestingly, even though the Samsung has the larger footprint compared to the Q10, it actually is 9 grams lighter, weighing about 130 grams versus the BlackBerry's 139 grams. Additionally, the Samsung S4 is quite a bit thinner than the BlackBerry Q10, measuring about 7.9 millimeters versus the BlackBerry's 10.4 millimeters. Now, in terms of build quality, I do have to say that both these two devices are kind of made out of really similar materials. They're both made out of really high quality plastics, and in the hand both respectively feel really well. The BlackBerry, even though it's a little bit heavier than the Samsung S4, really feels like a durable product that's going to last a really long time, and that keyboard feels really indestructible as well too, so you can hammer on that thing all day without having any issues. Now, in terms of screen size, obviously the Samsung S4 has a much larger screen, almost twice as big as what the Q10 offers. But what you have to understand is the Q10 is really devoted to the screen, and half of it's developed to support that large physical keyboard. And it's a sacrifice people will have to make if they want that physical keyboard. But on a positive note, the Q10 actually offers a really high quality, high density screen, even though it's smaller 3.1 inch size. It actually has a perfect 1:1 display, perfectly square, 720 by 720 in resolution. And the Samsung Galaxy S4 obviously has a much larger 5-inch display that is 1920 by 1080 in resolution. And in terms of pixel density, the Q10 is about 328 ppi versus the Samsung's 441. And in real life, when you watch normal things on this screen, on both of these screens look really good. Obviously the Samsung has the more immersive experience, and it's more of a media consumption device. Of course, many business people may want to use it, but again, the Q10 is a more serious device. It has a much more professional look and is less made for media consumption and more of a communication device with a lot of internet and next generation features. Now, hardware wise, what comes inside both these two devices is really powerful considering their functionality and what they're kind of made for. Starting with the BlackBerry Q10, comes with a dual core processor measuring about 1.5 gigahertz with 2 gigs of RAM. And the S4 obviously has a higher end processor, almost double in power, with a quad core processor measuring about 1.6 gigahertz and with the same 2 gigs of RAM. And funny enough, the BlackBerry in a lot of instances performs almost to the same level and sometimes even higher when you're loading up different web pages and certain applications. Obviously, with more CPU and GPU intensive applications, you're going to find the Samsung definitely has a massive edge on the BlackBerry, but again, the BlackBerry is not really made to run those type of application. Now, both these devices come with some really great cameras, both on the front and back of the devices. So we'll start by testing out the front-facing camera on both these devices. Now, in terms of specification, the GS4 actually has a 1080p front-facing camera at 30 frames per second versus the Q10 has a 720p 30 frames per second camera at the front for video features. But of course, when you watch them side by side, you'll notice they're quite similar. There are some differences in terms of clarity and color rendition. The GS4 definitely is recording at a higher bit rate, and with that you will see a little bit more color detail as well as quite a bit more sharpness on the front-facing camera. Now, when we move on to the rear-facing camera, you'll notice that in terms of image quality, the rear-facing camera of both these two devices perform a lot more closer than they do their front-facing camera. In terms of color rendition and clarity, again, there is a slight advantage on the GS4, not as much as on the front-facing camera because they're both really recording 1080p at 30 frames per second, but there's a slight advantage in terms of clarity just on the GS4, but unless you're going to be looking at it really critically, you're never going to find that difference. Now, this comparison is kind of a really quick overview on how these kind of devices work and kind of look side by side each other. If you are interested in either buying these or upgrading to these devices, what you should understand is there's a lot of unique advantages to each device. Starting with the Q10, it has some really great OS features on the BlackBerry OS. For example, the multitasking is really well integrated, perhaps some of the best multitasking on a smartphone currently available. Another advantage of the Q10 is its new notification hub on the BlackBerry OS, which is really easy accessible and is a great way to view all of your notifications such as email, Facebook, Twitter messages, all in one easy to get to place on the phone, which should be really great for the users of this phone. Additionally, the BlackBerry has many other advantages such as the BBM system that people really like and is really established. And obviously with the new OS, they're going to keep improving upon what they're learning from customers and users and reviewers. So it's definitely going to improve as we go along. And as long as BlackBerry is still going strong, which it seems to be, you're going to get some great features from them in the future. Now here I'm not going to go into too many details of the GS4's new feature over its predecessor, but all you need to know that this phone can pretty much do anything you want. It could be a full-on computer if you wanted to. It has many next generation features that you're going to see in a lot of upcoming smartphones, such as its Smart Stay feature, its Smart Pause feature, air gestures, air view, a whole bunch of other next generation features that really augments the phone into a more kind of user-friendly experience. So definitely some great advantages of the Samsung Galaxy S4. Now, if you're still interested in getting either of these phones, make sure to check out our review of each individual phone. We'll have links to that in the description below. And make sure that you're also subscribed to our YouTube channel to get all the latest videos. But basically, if you have any questions at all about anything I talked about, make sure to leave it on a comment down below. And give some feedback in terms of which phone you prefer. Do you like the physical keyboard, or would you rather have that 5-inch massive 1080p screen that the GS4 offers? As well as some other possible reasons that you might want to share. I'd love to hear your thoughts. But other than that, guys, make sure you're sharing this video wherever you can. That really helps us quite a bit. So share it on Twitter, Facebook, any of your social network feeds would be really helpful to us. And again, thanks for your support, and we'll see you later. Take care.